So this is now the 16th team that we've done a video on, looking at the off season and just recapping how the 23-24 regular season panned out and what we can expect going into the new season. On the channel, I have put some playlists together, trying to organize the videos a little bit better so you can find the list of all the off season videos for the teams that have been eliminated from the postseason so far. So if you want to check out the video about your team, you can find it there. You can find it in the list. But if your team is still playing in the OHL playoffs, I won't be doing those videos until their season officially comes to an end. Right now, the North Bay Battalion down 3-0 in that series against the Oshawa General. So it could be the Battalion who are the next team we'll be doing a feature video on. But in the meantime, let's look at the Soo Greyhounds because they had a fantastic bounce back year. The Greyhounds, they were one of 4 teams to put in a bid for the 2024 Memorial Cup. They went up against Kingston, Niagara, and Saginaw in the bidding process. But there were questions about how competitive they would be in 23-24 because that's one of the criteria when deciding who's going to host the OHL or the Memorial Cup from the OHL. And I think that's where maybe Saginaw had a bit of the inside track because this team last year, they were in a playoff spot. They looked competitive in the year before, but the Soo Greyhounds, outside looking in, they would end the regular season by missing the 2023 OHL playoffs. They had a record of 20-33-9-6. That was the third lowest in the overall standings last season. And they ended up losing the bid, of course, to Saginaw, the Spirit, set to host the Memorial Cup in May. But this Soo Greyhounds team, they got the third overall pick, selected Brady Martin from Elmira. And it seemed as though that was the turning point for this franchise. The Soo Greyhounds, a bit of a chip on their shoulder after losing the Memorial Cup bid to their division rivals. And it showed. They were a determined bunch. They ended up adding overage forward Jack Beck from the Ottawa 67s. They only gave up a pair of draft picks in that deal. And that was a great trade for Sault Ste. Marie to start the regular season. And it paid off really quick. The Greyhounds, they were one of the hottest teams to start the season, right behind the Kitchener Rangers. Kitchener and Sault Ste. Marie at the start of the season were 1-2 in points and also goals for. Artur Karki also fitting in quite nicely. He was leading in power play goals at one point early on in the regular season. So eventually, though, after that hot start, Saginaw would catch up to the Greyhounds and eventually pass them in the West Division. That was at about the OHL trade deadline. But despite the Saginaw Spirits run, Kyle Raftis, the general manager of the Soo Greyhounds, decided to go all in. A big trade with the Flint Firebirds, bringing in Gavin Hayes. He was a fantastic pickup, looked great with the Greyhounds. And then they also picked up Jacob Frasca, who is a face-off specialist. They got him from the Barrie Colts. And Frasca, he did miss time during the regular season due to a hip injury, but once he was healthy, he fit in great with his Greyhounds team and was a key contributor in the postseason. They did, however, give up some young talent in Alex Kostov and Connor Clattenburg. But like I said in the Sudbury Wolves video, if you're going to be going for a deep run, you have to be prepared to give up some assets. So that's exactly what the Greyhounds were willing to do. And I think what the Greyhounds did, I think paid off, especially when you consider this team missed the playoffs last year. And now we're competing for home ice advantage and potentially top spot in the West Division. In the end, though, they would finish third in the Western Conference standings, right behind the Saginaw Spirit. In the postseason, they ended up sweeping the Guelph Storm in the opening round, and then it was a classic 7-game series against the Saginaw Spirit. Right now, looking at the whole playoff picture up to this point, I think the Saginaw Sioux series has been the best of the 2024 OHL playoffs so far. That's just my opinion, but still a great battle, some great goaltending. We had some great physical play, some highlight goals, and just the two rivals going back and forth, exchanging punches. It was a great series, and someone had to lose, and that ended up being the Greyhounds losing in Game 7. And, of course, the Spirit, at the time of recording, facing the London Knights in the Western Conference Final. So let's look at the points from the regular season, the top 10 scorers for the Soo Greyhounds, and leading the way was Jack Beck. Like I said, an outstanding pickup from Ottawa. He had 27 goals, 58 assists, good for 85 points. Gavin Hayes, who they got from the Flint Firebirds, second in scoring. He had 37 goals, 39 assists on the season, good for 76 points. Marco Mignosa, third in team scoring, a great year for him, 22 goals, 31 assists, 53 points. Then Bryce McConnell Barker, the captain of the Greyhounds, ended the season with 22 goals, 29 assists, 51 points, but that was in 52 games. Remember, he took that hit from Sawyer Bolton, which knocked him out for a few weeks. And if it wasn't for that injury, it's kind of crazy to think what the New York Rangers prospect could have been capable of during the regular season, as he ended up fourth in scoring on the Soo Greyhounds team. After that, is Kirill Kudryavtsev. He had 5 goals, 42 assists, 47 points. Kudryavtsev, fantastic on the blue line, the import defenseman. And then Arttu Karki, 21 goals, 24 assists, good for 45 points. Owen Allard had a great year with the Greyhounds, 18 goals, 26 assists, 44 points. Andrew Gibson, who just signed with the Detroit Red Wings, he has 12 goals, 32 assists, 44 points on the season. Justin Cloutier, 9th in team scoring, 24 goals, 18 assists, 42 points. And then wrapping up the top 10, Jordan Dentino, 20 goals, 21 assists, 41 points. And Dentino, he showed up in the playoffs. He had a great run there in the second round against the Saginaw Spirit. Kind of that last hurrah, so to speak, as he did a great job of helping carry this team towards that Game 7 classic against the Saginaw Spirit. Goaltending wise, Charlie Schenkel carried the bulk of the load. He had a record of 28, 12, and 3, a 3.10 goals against average, and an 883 save percentage. He got a couple of shutouts in the series against the Saginaw Spirit. And then Landon Miller, the rookie netminder, he had a 17-6 and 0-2 record, a 2.79 goals against average, which is a little better than Schenkel. And his save percentage, also a little bit ahead of Schenkel, an 889 save percentage. So things are looking up, I feel, in net for Sault Ste. Marie with Landon Miller between the pipes. Definitely a goaltender of the future for this Greyhounds team. The graduating overagers this year, Jack Beck, Jacob Frasca, and Jordan Dentino. It's interesting to note that all 3 overagers were forwards. Usually you see a couple of forwards, maybe a defenseman or a goaltender, but I think the setup worked for the Soo Greyhounds with Beck, Frasca, and Dentino. Now, the overage candidates for next season, it's an interesting bunch. Starting off with Justin Dazzotti. He was acquired from the Guelph Storm ahead of the OHL trade deadline. He bounced around last season. Started the year in Mississauga before going to Guelph and then up to the Soo. And last year was a part of the Owen Beck trade from Peterborough to Mississauga. So Dazzotti, still trying to figure out his game. He was contributing. He was a depth player. He was getting some points down the stretch, but he could be an overage candidate for next season. There's also Owen Allard, who I think might be a favorite for the OA spot. Bryce McConnell-Barker, the New York Rangers prospect. Does he stay with the Rangers? Does he come back? If he does come back to junior, you have to figure he's a lock for one of those overage spots. There's also Gavin Hayes. He's a Chicago Blackhawks prospect. Does he come back? I don't think so, but it is the possibility. You also have Julian Fantino, Caden Carlisle. The 2 imports are both eligible as OAs next season. Kirill Kudryavtsev, he's the Vancouver Canucks prospect and import. Arttu Karki, who's a Vegas Golden Knights prospect and import. I wonder if both of those players graduate this season and maybe they look to 2 new imports or maybe acquire an import from another team, but still 2 overage candidates there. And then Charlie Schenkel could return for an overage season with the Greyhounds. So I don't see why Sault Ste. Marie can't compete for top spot in the West Division next season. I think this is a team that still has the depth. If they go with Schenkel and Miller again, I think that's a good goaltending combination. Miller will be a little more experienced and I think a little more better. So I think that's promising for Sault Ste. Marie. But it does all start with the overagers. And it's like that for any team in the Ontario Hockey League. You want to get your overager situation set. They do have a lot of options. So it's going to be very interesting to see where Kyle Raftis goes in his decision-making. But I do think this is a Greyhounds team that could go on another deep run-ish for Sault Ste. Marie. It's going to be tough there in the Western Conference. I think the Erie Otters, of course, I mentioned, they're going to be stronger. There's also the London Knights. They're, of course, always competitive year in, year out. But I think for the Soo Greyhounds, this is a team that could compete again next year. But it's going to come down to what do they do with their overage situation. But that's how I see it from the booth. Let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts on the Greyhounds. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And we'll talk to you again soon.